Well, now if we discuss sustainability assessment in practice, it's important to notice that this assessment is divided into the three dimensions of sustainability: the economic, the environment, and society. And then in each of these dimensions, we will do some calculations that will give us hints of how well or bad we are doing. So we will start with the economic dimension. And this dimension is maybe organically connected with the financial assessment that we discussed, that is the general one that we know. And maybe you know some of these metrics and ratios from other courses, or maybe it's completely new and you will need to learn. But it's very important also to realize that we will, in this course, we will focus only on three ratios, three metrics from each of the dimensions, because it's possible that you can have more metrics. For example, in the economics, there is a lot of things that you can do. Maybe you already know from finance course or something, but we will focus on this because these are the most common, the most used. Even the economic ones, these apply to every organization, every industry. These are very important ones that you need to know. So first, we start with the first metric, that is leverage, and it's a very simple calculation where you divide the total debt over the total equity. So the idea is to show how much debt do you have compared to your equity. Usually, you don't want to have extremely high levels of this leverage, like you don't want to have something like 90% or 95%, because that means you have a lot of debt. You want to have some balance. Also, if it's very low, maybe that's also a sign that maybe you can get some debt because you don't have enough debt. So leverage is an important factor. If a company has high leverage, there is a risk, because that means they are paying a lot of interest. So there are many things that we can discuss about leverage. We will see that later when we do the assessment. Right now, we'll try to focus only on how we do the calculation. In the next video, we'll focus about how we interpret the results. Then we have another important metric, that is financial or economic, which is the current ratio. And for this, you divide the current assets over the current liabilities. So this ratio shows you how much you are moving the positive things of the company. So the short-term assets, how quickly you can generate them, versus the current liabilities, the things that you need to pay quickly. How much do you have? You usually want to have more current assets than current liabilities, because that means that you are doing well in the short term. I mean, it depends. If you have sometimes more liabilities in the short term, you need to be sure that you have like like a like you have enough to cover for this. Maybe you have more equity or you have long-term assets. I mean, it gets a little bit complicated, but the main idea is that it's better to have more assets than current liabilities, so you usually want to have something higher than one. We will discuss how to interpret this later. And finally, the net profit margin, like you generate income and that you generate sales, and you want to check how much of that sales is actually income. So you do this division, net income over net sales. So it is the net profit margin. So I mean, you want to have this margin as higher as possible, but it's usually good to compare it with the industry to make sure that you are in the like in the normal terms, we could call it like that. So, I mean, we will make sure that in this video you understand what you have to do. Divide this over this, divide this over this, divide this over this. In the next video, we will explain how to interpret these things. Then we go to the environment, and maybe this is something a bit new because maybe you didn't have like financial sustainability finance or something like that. So maybe it's important to know these metrics, how we calculate them, and then we'll see how we interpret in the next video. So first we have CO2 intensity. It is a simple calculation that tells you from the total CO2 emissions. If you divide that number by net sales, it will tell you how much emissions you have per dollar, basically. So it's a good calculation to see what is the CO2 intensity in your operations. So we do it like this with sales. Very similar thing we have with energy. So how much energy do you consume over net sales? So it's the same. Probably you will have this thing in kilowatt per hour, and then you divide that by net sales. So you can probably have how much kilowatt per hour do you have for $1,000 or something like that. We'll do the practice later, but it's this in CO2 emissions over sales, this in kilowatt per hour probably over net sales. Then we have environmental capex, which is also another important thing. It's not that hard to get it, to calculate it. You need to get the capex. Remember, is capital expenditure, so it's the expenses that are not on short-term things like inventory, like wages, more like expenditures on things that are investments. Like it can be a machine, it can be a construction, it can be this kind of things, like our long-term things. So capital expenditure on environmental things, on environmental projects. So it can be a machine that is maybe using less energy, or a car that is not having environmental impact, these kind of things that are environmental projects divided by the total capex, the total capital expenditure. So I think they're easy to calculate, but they are very powerful tools. They'll tell you a lot on the environment. Again, we will explain how to interpret these things in the next video. And finally, we also have some social aspects. I think many things are for inside the organization, generally with your employees. That's very important to take care of your employees, but also there are some metrics for outside the organization, sometimes with the community. So let's start with the first metric, training investment per employee. So it's another basic calculation, total training expenses over the number of employees. This will tell you how much you are spending per employee on training. I mean, usually you want to have well-trained, high-skilled employees. So it's good to take a look at this and check what is going on. The next one is about employee welfare. So it is about benefits and well-being expenses. Uh, it's also good from a sustainability aspect to take care of the employees. So this is maybe a proxy for that. So you do the same thing. All the total expenses for employee benefits and well-being divided by number of employees. So it can give you also a hint of how much you are investing on the welfare of your employees. And finally, something that is more outside than the employees, the community investment. So is the total expenses of community and social projects divided by net sales. So you want to show how much money you invest on community development from your net sales. So that is what we are going to do in the next video. We will check how this how we apply this, how we compare, how we analyze, and how we evaluate based on real numbers.